Hello, thanks for checking out Mr. Ware's videos. And today we're looking at transversals. We're going to talk about a transversal, which is a line that goes through two other lines. We're going to talk about the different angle pairs they make, and we're going to talk about the properties when a transversal goes through a parallel line. So let's begin. So here we have a transversal. Transversal is a line that intersects two lines in a plane at different points. 8 angles are formed. Line T is a transversal of lines A and B. So over here on the right, you see line T. It goes through two lines and it forms 8 different pairs of angles. Okay, so here are 4 of the types of angle pairs. Okay, so first let's start with corresponding. Angles that lie on the same side of the transversal and on the same side of the other two lines. So here you've got angles that say on the same side of the transversal, but also on the same side of the other two lines. So it's on the lower side of the A and B here. Another way to look at that, I've got it over here on the right. You've got, it could be an upper left or lower left, upper right, lower right. If you get two of the same, 2 upper lefts, 2 lower lefts, 2 upper rights, 2 lower rights, they're corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. Alright, let's look at some others. Alternate interior. Alternate interior, angles that lie on the opposite sides of the transversal between the other two lines. Okay, so you see how the 5 and the 4 are on the inside? Let me show you a quick picture of that. Here's interior, inside the two lines. Exterior being the blue, outside of the two lines. Interior, exterior. Okay, so on this one we have alternate interiors. They're inside, but they alternate. They go across the transversal. Here, alternate exterior, angles that lie on the opposite side of the transversal, outside of the two lines. So they alternate, but they stay on the outside, not inside the two lines. Alright, and now you have same side interior angles. Angles that lie on the same side of the transversal between the other two lines. They're also called consecutive interior angles. You'll see that in a minute. But right here, you've got 2 angles. They're on the inside, and they're on the same side interior. Alright, so let's take a look at another graphic organizer here. So here you see another transversal, alright, and we got the 8 pairs of angles. I just want to show you each one. So you have corresponding, alternate interior. So there's more than one pair, 2 and 7, 6 and 3. Alternate exterior, 1 and 8, 4 and 5. Or same side interiors, 2 and 3, 6 and 7. Alright, take a moment here, see if you can name what type of pair of angles these are. So we'll start off with angle 1 and angle 3. Just want to name it. What kind would this be? And those are transversals going left to right here, but it still has an inside and an outside. Alright, that's going to be corresponding angles. They abbreviated here, corresponding angles. See if you can name 3 and 6. Okay, that's alternate interior, alternate interior. So they went across this way, alternate interior. See if you can find 4 and 5. Alright, that's going to be alternate exterior. Going to alternate across, but be on the outside. Alright, see if you can find 6 and 7. Okay, that's going to be same side interior. Same side interior. It's also called consecutive interior angles. Okay, let's take a look at a few more. Okay, here, every line over here is a transversal. It just depending on how you look at it. So it says classify the relationship between each pair of angles as alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding, or consecutive interior angles. So let's say I'm looking at angle or line N here, and say N is my transversal. Well, that'll be here. I'm looking at all these angles. But if I'm looking at line P, then this is the transversal. These are the angles I'm looking at. But you can flip it. Let's say we're looking at line L. This side over here, can you find the angles here? And line M right in here. So it doesn't tell you which one's the transversal, but if you look at the two angles, you can be like, oh, well, this must be the transversal. So let's take a look at 5 here. So 5 says angle 2 and angle 10. So here the transversal is N. What type of angle pair would that be? Alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding, or consecutive interior? Okay, that's going to be corresponding angles. All right, take a look at 7 and 13. Okay, that's going to be alternate interior. Alternate interior. All right, take a look at 9 and 13. The M is the transversal. Okay, that's going to be corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. All right, let's take a look at 6 and 16. 6 and 16. All right, that's going to be alternate exterior. Alternate exterior. Let's look at number 9. 3 and 10. 3 and 10. That's going to be consecutive interior or same side interior. All right, last one here. 8 and 14. 8 and 14. Okay. And that's another alternate interior. Alternate interior. Okay, now let's talk about the properties. So here is a transversal T going through lines R and S, but R and S are parallel. Okay, and when that happens, certain things happen to the angles. Okay, the different types of angles could either be congruent or add up to equal 180. So here is a picture of that, showing that the corresponding alternate interior, vertical, and alternate interior are all congruent or equal to each other. But the same side interior and same side exterior, they added that one in on this, is add up to equal 180. And that could be a lot to remember. But the way it's easier to remember is if you have two acute angles, it's equal. You have two obtuse angles, it's equal or congruent. But if you have an acute and obtuse, it's going to add up to equal 180. So let's take a look at a couple of those examples. Okay, here it says find the measure of x. So here's x here. Here's 80 here. They are same side exterior angles. But don't take a look at that. Take a look and see if you can tell if x and this angle here, 80, are both acute, both obtuse, where they will be equal, or is one acute, one obtuse, adding up to equal 180. So you got one obtuse and one acute. You're just going to take the 180, subtract 180, subtract 80 from it, and you get 100. So x is equal to 100. Okay. Let's look through a few more of these. What do you think this one will be? How much is angle x? Angle x is 16. They're both acute, so they both equal. Alright, let's look at number 3. Are they both acute, obtuse, or is one acute and one obtuse? Okay, they're both, well, one's acute and the other one's obtuse. So you take the 180, subtract the angle that you know, you get 162, and that's how you find angle x. Alright, let's take a look at a few more. Alright, here they're both acute. So angle x is going to equal 75 degrees. Same measurement. Here it's a little tricky. You got to find y and x, and none of these are one of the angle pairs we talked about, but the acute obtuse still holds true. So see if you can figure out how much y and x is. Okay, so we've got an acute, two acutes here, so that's going to be 47, right? They equal. But for the x, you got an obtuse. So we're going to take that 47 and subtract it from 180 to get 133. All right, let's take a look at this one. All right, these are both obtuse, so they're both going to add up to equal the same amount. Not add up to equal, but just they both equal the same amount. Okay, so that's transversals. Remember the rules where they go through a parallel line, try to know the different types of angle pairs, and that's pretty much it. I just want to thank you for checking out Mr. Ware's videos. Have a nice day.